So for purposes of the recording, to repeat, we're going to now see how to add some static files so we can have some CSS. So this does require a tiny bit of setup work in the settings.py, which is why it's useful to know, the basic layout of project structures. And we want to look for, it may not actually exist. That's always interesting searching for stuff. Like we can see here, there's some sort of Django module related to static files, or app, rather, in their term, that's already installed. And we can see here, they've got some stuff. There's a how-to link, which is great. I think it's a big plus, honestly, when comments include relevant links. We can see that by default, this is set to static. And just to add a bit more, I think we should add this, which is, and this is obviously a Django configuration thing. I'm following our lesson plan here, so I didn't just make this up. And I'll talk about what baster is in a sec. And to be honest, there is something fancy going on with this / here and how Django is interpreting this file. I actually would want to double check. I'm curious if Python does some sort of interpolation. What I have here, and actually this is very good for people to see. If you're not familiar, if you run Python, you get what's called the REPL, the read, evaluate, print loop. Python's runtime, rather than using the Python command to read and execute a file on the command line, this runs a little program that is listening for our input and runs it through Python when we hit enter. And I'm really curious what this does. Yeah, this is an error. So there's something a little special going on with this nomenclature here. As you'll note, this isn't normal Python. And I'll double check and see what that is. Base directory is a common term, very similar to root directory, right? Baster. And this is using some Django tools, and this is almost definitely our polls project directory. And that's why when we're setting the static stuff, setting it relative to that isn't the worst. And in fact, what we're going to do is at the root level of our project, or I should say rather at the root level of the Python project. Yep, it should be right about here. And I'm going to make sure I'm in the right spot in the terminal to do this. So I want to move back a bit because I'm inside one of the apps right now. And now I know I'm where I want to be because I see manage PY here, and that's in the root of our Django project. And I am going to make a directory named static here. And inside that, we're going to make just a simple CSS file. We could add stuff there, and in fact, we should add something. And let's open this up and take a look. And maybe we'll do something like, what's something really obvious? Color. I'm not gonna lie, I am actually a little rusty. I haven't messed with CS in a moment. So give me a sec here. Perfect. Let's just do something like this. Color blue. Font size 24 pixels. I just want something so we can confirm that this CSS is being applied. And what we're going to do now is hop on over to our index.html file, and we will add some stuff here. We'll make it look like a proper HTML file. You know, the Django templating is sort of doing some of this for us. As you've noticed, all of this worked. And I don't think all of these are needed, but at the moment, just to be safe, I am going to, you know, let's not even worry about this. Let's just add, let's see how this works. Think relative style sheet, href. And so note that I will put this, yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll see if this works, and we'll circle back to it if it doesn't. And the interesting thing here is this path. This /root is going to be the base directory of our Django project. And when Django server gets this request, it's going to look in this static directory. And actually, really what I should do is make the CSS directory. And put it there. And I didn't do that, did I? There we go. And let's see if this works, or if I do need to add a bit of HTML around stuff. And lo and behold, we've now got some CSS working, which we can tell because this suddenly got big and blue. And if we inspect this element, and this is why DevTools is now really your best friend. And by the way, Chrome is really kind of the standard for front-end work in the industry because of DevTools. And if we look at the network tab, what we see is that a request was made for this HTML. And because this was here, a following request was made for our CSS page. Great question in the chat. Are Chrome DevTools notably better than Firefox? I would say yes. I haven't used Firefox DevTools in ages. They're certainly functional. The Chrome ones are just incredibly powerful. And as far as I know, really are the standard. And there are so many extensions as well. I don't know if I have any that we can see at the moment, but just to show you, there's a lot you can do here. You can record and analyze performance. You can look at cookies. You can do all those things that Firefox. Google just has a lot more money and people to throw at making their dev tools really good. And the front-end devs at Google are using dev tools. And there are things like React Dev Tools for Chrome and things like that. So I would strongly recommend Chrome Dev Tools, especially from a professional perspective. And so we have some styling here, which is great. And I probably should add some HTML. So I think we will do that. And I am going to be a little lazy and do a little bit of copying and pasting, mainly because one of the things I'm going to copy and paste is a link to some Bootstrap. And we don't need that there. And we'll call that there, and we'll close that out. And that should work. Yeah. And the important thing that I added here is this link that is going and grabbing the Bootstrap style sheet. So without going into too much detail, CDN stands for Content Delivery Network, and as a server, for things that are really commonly used, like Bootstrap, where instead of having to put the CSS and the JavaScript stuff for Bootstrap in our own project directory and stuff, we can grab it from the internet. And for really commonly things like Bootstrap, it used to be jQuery and some other things. Those are all over the place. And that's just a nice thing to know and a nice thing to have an example of. I want to show another useful feature of templating, of how to use a template with another template. And so what I think I'm going to do is make a file here, and we'll call it just pop-up button.html. And here we'll do something pretty simple. I saw the comment in the chat about the Firefox Developer Edition. Yes, there is a Firefox Developer Edition. Let me put it this way. Everyone I have ever worked with professionally who was doing front-end software engineering was using Chrome DevTools. It's the industry standard, and to be honest, not being familiar with it, I think, is going to hurt you. I know some people are very passionate about Firefox and enjoy it, and normally I don't want to kind of dictate technology choices for things like that. And I could be behind the curve. Firefox DevTools could have improved dramatically. That's quite possible. And I'll do a little Googling later on to see if that's the case. But I will say that the Chrome tools, my understanding is they're still the industry standard. So I would just encourage folks to bite the bullet and start using Chrome. I will also say you're on your own with any other dev tools. We can't kind of make any promises in terms of like instructors having knowledge of those things. But again, I'll check, because the industry moves really quick, and it is quite possible that I'm behind the curve here. And I'm seeing some comments in the chat that maybe there are some things that Firefox does well. Yeah, and I've veered a little bit, so this is a good discussion, but I don't want to lose track of what I wanted to show us, which is how to use a template with another template. And we're going to do something simple and fun, which is when this button is clicked, we'll make an alert. You know what? Are Chrome Dev Tools better? 2023. Industry standard. So we've got approximately 1,000 votes here, pretty strongly in favor of Chrome. Yeah, as long as you're getting what you need to done, it's actually really, I shouldn't get too wrapped up in it. Actually, that's not what we're doing anymore here. So I've made a very simple template, and I just want to show an example of using it in our other template. And we use the curly bracket and percent because we're doing something with logic. And we can use an include statement inside Django templates, which is where stuff does get a bit funky. And we keep it very simple. Pop-up button, HTML. and we'll close that div. And unless I have made a typo, we do have a button. Lo and behold. Yeah, totally. Yeah, the one thing I will say with all this Chrome versus Firefox stuff, to enter into the industry as a professional, you want to be familiar with the tooling that the majority of the industry is using. There are some serious advantages to that. Like once you write code on a team, you write it in the style the team wants it, not the way that we want it, and to some degree that's true with our tooling as well. The last thing I want to show, and I think the timing is perfect, is how to do like including a template in another template, but even more so with some layout with extending templates. And over here, we kind of have some things combined. We have this stuff about polling, we have a title, and something we might want that we don't have is, if we were to make a template, is a back button to go back to the homepage. To mention the example that I said before, it'd be really good for the user experience if when they see this, there's a back to homepage button. And we could use this tool of include, but really it's nice to have a layout template that you can use it and really kind of combine templates a bit more richly. And that's where extension comes in. So going to make a new file named layout.html in our templates folder. And we are going to go ahead and do this. And I am actually going to just go ahead and copy. I think I'm just going to cut all of that and put it there. And then we can get rid of HTML here. We can put all that there. And now this is our polls homepage. Let's actually call it just the polls page. And in fact, let's make this H2, because over here for the H1 in the body, we'll say polls. And the way we can really combine templates is using what's called a block. And a block is one of these terms that is really broad and flexible. That means like a unit of stuff. And this is a bit special to the Django, to templating really in general. Every kind of templating language for this kind of stuff is going to have some concept of this. And there we go. I think my indentation is correct there. And what this says is we have a layout. And in here, we are going to put something else. And we're calling it content. And it's going to start here and end here. And let me show you how we're going to use this. When we want to insert a template as a block inside another, we use the word extends. The keyword, the verb extends, not unlike extending a class. A little bit in concept is probably where that term came from. And we can do some slightly fancy stuff with the block will probably, let's see. Yeah, let's not worry about that. Let's just do block content for now. We'll start, you can have sort of multiple blocks in a template, and we will worry about that later. And I'm going to put these on 2 different lines because to me it's a little more readable. And let me make sure this is working, and then we can talk a bit about what it's doing. And I want to say it's oh well, we haven't used it anywhere else, and that actually would be a good next step. So this is working. It says polls here, right? There's not a lot of fancy stuff. Maybe we'll add something down here at the bottom just to highlight what's going on. And you can see what's happened, that the Django templating system is combining stuff for us, that we have a layout page and we say, hey, here's a block of stuff. When we want to use it, we use this keyword extends, and then we have to tell it which block in this layout is this going into. Because if you want to get really fancy, you can do stuff like this. And I'll try to keep my sort of layout simple. This is where templates get a little messy, and the React is complex. It does make things a bit simpler. We'll get rid of that. I'll put that there. We'll do that like that, and if that works, yeah. So for our layout, we've got 2 blocks. I'll put this between blocks, just again as a visual illustration tool. And you can see this is the title block. This is from my layout template. This is from my other template here, and then this is below the block. And what we'll do is we'll do end of content block to make it really clear. And this does become useful. And I think that a good way to do this and demonstrate its use was, let's flesh out these pages a bit with a bit more stuff. Let's do a detail. Let's do a question detail page. And actually, before diving into that, let me pause and see what questions people have about Django layout and sort of this bit of extending and blocks, and anything else. And this is a great time too, if it's good to go over and review some stuff. We've covered a lot of ground. I know I jumped around a bit, and also Django does have a lot of moving parts, and that's part of what we're here for. So definitely, if there's something it'd be useful for us to look at again, please, now's a great time to do that. Everyone's feeling good about routing and apps. How do we feel about routing and apps? Thoughts there? Questions?
It is there, just
No one-
kind of getting hands on for it now.
Yeah.
I'll know a lot more once I try and do it myself.
Okay. On that note, I think actually the most valuable thing we can do is go over the assignment. So let's take a look at what we're going to do after lunch today. The plan is, and I'll throw this in the Zoom chat for anyone that wants it. And I also do, I'll just throw in the Zoom chat, friendly reminder to install the Django VS Code extension, the one with 6 million installs. So we're going to look at the school interface project that we've seen, where there's students, classes, staff, there is data, and there is one thing that I think I'll point out here when we get to it. And we're going to use Django to build a web application so we can look at this information, which is actually going to be really interesting. And so part of this, and this is part of what we're practicing, is just getting more experience with Django project setup and getting used to Python virtual environments and stuff like that. So this is, take some time and read through this. I always recommend, by the way, there's some code here that I'll talk about in a minute. Take the time, read through the code, skim it, take the time, look at the data. You always want to look at everything a bit before you dive in and start writing code. And it's a really good habit for technical interviews. So the Django project creation stuff is relatively straightforward. And this is really more of a tutorial exercise because we want to give you some guided steps to just get more practice with building things with Django. And so we'll be creating an app, and there are some, steps around doing things. This step is really unnecessary, which is why we called it optional, and it doesn't do anything. It will remove a warning message is the only reason why it's mentioned there. This is where we get interesting. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we've given you some Python classes for this stuff, and we're going to put that stuff in the models PY directory, which we haven't talked a lot about, but you'll notice that here in Polls app, there is a models PY. And really that's where the data lives. Really, this data up here, this latest questions list, it belongs here in models, at least structurally, and maybe I'll do that at lunch before I push this code up. This is where classes will live that will interact with your Postgres database. So we're sort of giving you a simulation of that for free right now. And then you will be creating a bunch of views using what we just learned about templates to create views, most importantly, create links to other things dynamically. And you can practice, doing a little bit of fanciness with templates, with extending and including and stuff. And my recommendation, as always, is to keep it simple. Start with the simple version first and don't add it till you need it. And the rest of this exercise kind of walks through this. And so I think the most useful thing to look at quickly is the data and the classes. The data should look pretty familiar, right? It's JSON for staff, for students. And what we've done is when you clone this, you won't want to move these directories around, and the README kind of explains this, because we did do a little hard coding here, and you'll note that what this class does is it grabs that CSV, and then it should be doing something. Because we import from person. Okay, so that's where the real work is being done. So if we look at the person file, we can see what's happening is we grab data from that CSV, and we create a bunch of class instances with it. And staff is maybe a bit of a more straightforward example. And that's also why it's worth looking at this code. I think it's actually a good example of object-oriented design. But you'll have these classes, and when you work with them, they will get the data from the CSV files, and your job will be to use them like models that we'll see soon with Postgres to put data into views to show on a page and build a website for a school roster. And that's the plan. So I think that's it. We ran a bit long. I think we're talking about doing a 5-minute stand down at the end of the day. Nick will probably be in touch if we have any changes or updates there, and I will be around, but that's really the plan for the afternoon. How does that sound to everyone?